Here we go. Let's rock it out. All right, everybody, I'd like to apologize for that extremely loud intro. I'm going to blame my producer, Josh. It was all his fault.
Up.
I'd also like to thank our backup singers. You can't see them in the camera right now if you're watching this on YouTube. They're actually standing behind the cameras. Thank you, ladies. You do an amazing job every week. I don't know how you rock it out like that. I'm kind of jealous, actually. I wish I could sing like that. Like, that's a... Like, how do you bring that every week? Yeah. I don't know, man.
I don't like how they can get tucked away in a corner and still sing like that.
Yep. Cool. So you ladies can exit out the back. We're done for this week. Thank you very much. You guys rock, and we'll see you on the next show, okay? Cool. Welcome, everybody. This is kind of a special episode of Invest, Sell, Repeat. I've got that down to a science, man. I'm proud of myself. That took me like 4 weeks to like say it right. I don't know why. That's like how my brain works, right? So this show is all about real estate, man. So if you're a new real estate investor, if you're thinking about becoming a real estate investor, or even if you're seasoned, we've got a little bit something for everybody. We bring a lot to the table. And that's one reason why we love real estate, is because it doesn't matter your experience level. It doesn't matter if you have money, if you don't have money. There's always ways for you to get plugged in and start rocking this thing out, man. So I started my business 10 years ago. Whole Carlton Sheets thing on cassette. Went through
on cassette tape.
It was on cassette tape,
Jesus,
baby.
Man.
Yep. I had to actually go buy one because who has a cassette player?
Right.
Like 10 years ago.
You had to go to a museum.
Yeah, yeah, the museum thrift store. Dig through all the piles of clothes. But the thing is, I had made a decision. And that's really what it takes to be successful, is making a decision to move forward, regardless if you've got the money, if you've got the know-how, if you've got the experience. It doesn't matter, man. Make a decision and start moving forward. And that's exactly what I did back in the day. Wanted a better life for my family, wanted a better life for myself, and started moving forward, man. I can remember the first seller phone call that I made. Like, it's like that's ingrained in my brain. I had listened to all of the Carlton Sheets tapes, and like, honestly, like the stuff he went over, it was kind of antiquated and outdated at the time, but it was enough to get me going. And what he would do is say, listen, you need to get your Sunday paper, because that's where my lead source came from, and go through, and he would give you these list of keywords that would say, hey, this person's motivated, and you need to call this person. Just talk to them, see where they're at, find out what their situation is, and see if you can make a deal with them. And so that's what I did, man. I got my Sunday paper, big yellow Sharpie, went through. I had like 5 or 6 leads that had these motivated keywords in them. You could probably still use that today, actually.
Through the paper? You use the paper?
Yeah, the Sunday paper. Yeah, in the real estate section.
Wow.
So people list their, properties for sale there. I'm totally thinking about it. We should totally do that on an episode. Get the paper, go through, look at people, and call them live on air.
Great.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
That'd be a very vintage way to do it. I like it.
Yeah. The thing is, there's no excuses. Like James and I talk about that constantly. Like if you want to succeed in this business, all it takes is a decision to move forward, regardless.
Right.
And then grinding it out day by day. So if you don't have internet access, dude, get yourself a paper.
Go to the library.
Yeah. Start making phone calls and reaching out to people. But anyway, yeah, my first seller lead, called this person, and it actually was a realtor who had a property listed. And I can remember picking up the phone and dialing the number and like bringing it up to my ear, my hand like shaking, like my heart's pounding out of my chest, nervous. What am I going to say? What are you doing? Like all those fears and doubts, like rushing, like almost paralyzing, honestly. So I had this conversation with her. I'm sure my voice was a little shaky and just, probably asking completely stupid questions.
Right.
And she probably thought I didn't know what I was talking about, and could tell that I was brand new, all of those things.
And it's so much worse in your head.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure I probably didn't babble on too much with her. But here's the thing, I didn't get a deal from that first phone call, and you probably won't either if you're listening to this. But what I did is I hung up the phone and I went to the next one. And I dialed that, despite of my insecurity, despite of my lack of funds or my experience, I picked up the phone and I dialed again. And that's one reason why I'm successful, is because I continue to make those phone calls and get myself in uncomfortable situations and constantly pushing forward, So now I've got a team behind me. I don't have to sit there and talk to buyers and sellers all day long, right? I want to keep myself on bigger picture. Where am I taking the company? These incredible products that we've put together for you people to come get yourself plugged into, is really where my vision is at. But it took me a long time to get that team put together.
Right.
So now we've got a fully operational call center, which is awesome. So I think we have one more person that we need to hire. So we've got 10 people in there.
You filled that out quick.
Banging out seller calls and buyer calls all day long. So we can we can handle thousands of phone calls a day, which is amazing. If that's something that you want to get plugged into, the back end systems, definitely get in touch with us. How do people get in touch with us? Do they call a number? Do they contact us on social media?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about living in the age we do. There's so many. If you want a Facebook message, if you want to tweet at Marcus or tweet it even at myself, or get on the website and shoot us an email, or actually just call into the office, or hell, come to the office. Our address is listed there, and we would love you to come in, come see, come find out, come look behind the curtain and find out it's real, like what we are doing here. The processes that we have established, that's all efficiently running, and figure out how to get plugged in yourself.
It is. It's legit. Again, no excuses.
Exactly.
I love what you said. We always encourage people to come to the office. To me, that is such a great visual for people to come in, walk through call center, right? Meet everybody that's on, that runs the organization on a day-to-day. It's impressive.
Right.
And it's really cool.
They're real people that have, real skills and things like that. Like I remember I once went to a property with you where a lady just kind of threw some money at it, and turns out that the contractor was just ripping her off and was stripping. It's just that's what happens when you come into the office. You realize you're not working with people like that. You're working with professionals and people that are really going to follow through and help you out. Establish that passive income for yourself.
Yep. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Passive income, baby. We love building portfolios up for investors, and then helping you on the back end to manage the property, make sure that you get a good tenant, right? Make sure that construction is tight. Like all of those, there's several key things that you have to be successful in real estate. So anybody listening here, one thing we don't talk about a lot is buying deals on this. So let's just spend a second talking about that. Even though it's not on our notes.
We'll get there.
But I'm rabbit trailing.
Sure.
So let's face it. So there's a lot of smart people out there. So if you're living outside of the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, or even across the sea, across the seas, the ocean, whatever it's called, we have a lot of people calling us, wanting to buy property. The thing is, anybody could come here to the Midwest and buy themselves a $30,000 house, buy themselves a $40,000 house. That's easy. That's the easy part. The hard part with real estate is all of the back-end systems and what it actually takes to get the property to the point where you've got it rehabbed, you've got a good tenant placed, and they're actually paying rent. Because let's face it, that's what it's all about. If you're buying a $50,000 or $60,000 house, you're buying that strictly for cash flow. You're buying to put it into your portfolio. Obviously, that is a long-term hold. That's not something that you're going to buy, fix it up, and sell it and put a bunch of money in your pocket. It's a long-term strategy.
Right.
So that's what all of our back-end systems are built around, is helping you be successful. So don't be one of those investors that calls me and says, hey, Marcus, I bought 6 houses and they're all trashed and vacant. And it might, it's just this real estate thing isn't what I thought it was going to be. Can you come help me dig myself out of this hole that I've got myself into? And we have that happen consistently.
Really?
Absolutely. We just took over a portfolio of 11 properties, all in crappy areas. They were supposed to be rented Section 8. There was only 4 tenants in the 11 properties, and each one of them needs about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of rehab, the vacant ones do, to bring it up to standards so you can actually put a person in there. Right. And so imagine that investor's surprise when we analyzed the deal that he had already bought for him and say, hey, here's what you actually have and here's how much money you need to invest
right
in your
And we're
portfolio.
talking about bringing these properties just up to a standard, not like just decking out completely. Not like it's not going to be featured on cribs, but like I think an important part is to be able to eyeball that and be able to say this is what needs to be done to make it livable. And I'm not saying it's going to be in a crappy state, but it's not going to be it's not gold toilets at the same time.
Honestly, dude, that is such a great point. So we get a lot of investors coming in here, and we will walk them through properties. Let's say let's pick a house that rents for $700 a month,
right?
And then we'll say, well, how come there's not granite countertops? How come you don't put 6-panel doors in this property? What people do a lot of times, especially if you're new, you find this. People will rehab the house to a standard of if they were living in it themselves. Which the only thing that you're doing at that point is you're dumping an extra $15,000, $20,000 into the property, which won't make it rent more. And all it is it takes you longer to get your money back. It lowers your return, your yearly return, and you've got to wait another, good grief. Imagine $15,000 worth of cash flow, and let's say on a $700 a month rent, that's gross is $700. Net, let's just say you take home $500. So let's say if everything goes perfect,
Which it won't.
for an entire year, you're only going to bring in $6,000.
Right.
Okay, so 2 years, that's $12,000. So you're at 2.5 years it's going to take you, if everything goes according to plan,
Right.
To get your money back if you invest an extra $15,000, right? And that it completely defeats the point.
Right.
And that's one thing. Another thing a huge thing actually that we bring to the table is knowing how to rehab properties.
Right.
I don't rehab a $700 a month rent the same that I do $1,000 because there's different expectations. Different parts of town.
Sure.
And it's a completely different type of person that wants to, hey, I want to rent $1,000 house as opposed to $700. And there's a fine line. So you don't want to go overboard. Same thing is you don't want to under rehab the property either. Our whole goal when we do rehabs is to make it clean, safe, and functional, and to get it rented for whatever the target rent is for that property in that area.
Right.
It's good grief. We spent years perfecting just that one thing.
And that's just one system.
That's just one, but it's a huge one.
Sure.
Dude, we could sit here and we could talk about systems all day long. Like we could probably just do a podcast, like a 3-hour podcast on just what we have on the back end that brings to the table.
People find most interesting because that's stuff that's hard to learn.
That experience is the only thing that'll teach you.
Exactly. I mean, I think most people just be like, well, I'm just going to put the money down and now I'm done. There we go. I bought the property. That's it. Now I just wait, right? I don't think it works that way.
Nope. There's a lot that goes into it. One thing that people need to realize as well is this is an investment.
Exactly.
This is not guaranteed. You don't get to come and buy properties and everything's hunky-dory.
Right.
And you don't ever have tenants that move out or plumbing issues or things that happen. It's just like we try not to paint this, hey, buy 5 properties from us and you're financially free, because that is not how it works. I would always suggest if you want to buy a portfolio, you need to have 10 houses for it to be self-sustaining.
And that's what I like about this company. We're not used car salesmen. There is a bit of honesty to it. It's not just like, no, everything's going to be perfect. You're not promising paradise. You're promising this is going to be an investment to work, but this is going to liberate you. And this is you'll be working for yourself. And what's the cost of that? That seems priceless to me. That's
another thing, too, that people do is they will this happens to a lot of local guys. They will buy properties here and they'll think, hey, you know what? I'm going to save that 8 to 10% property management fee because I'm local.
Right.
And I can go collect rent and I can take those maintenance calls and I can deal that. I can put all that money in my pocket. When what they don't realize is all they're doing is they're creating themselves an entire another job when that's not what you should be doing. So why do we buy real estate? We buy real estate so we can free up our time to go either enjoy ourselves, buy other businesses, figure out other ways of making money and increasing our net worth. You don't want to buy a portfolio of 10 properties and then go answer maintenance calls, go unclog a toilet and deal with all that bullshit, man. If you're doing that, you're doing it completely wrong. Here's another thing too. What if you had a portfolio of 10 properties that you were self-managing and then you passed away? I've had this happen before.
It was like probably to a family member, just falls on them, right?
Okay, yeah. So who's going to take care of it? Your wife?
Yeah.
So now your wife knows nothing about real estate, nothing about taking maintenance calls or what costs what or how things actually work or how to put a good tenant, how to pay the taxes. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So if really all that is a mindset.
Right.
And it's really interesting. You can see where people are at. You can typically tell how much money people make by their very brief conversation. By if they say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to manage these properties. I've got these 10 doors. I'm going to manage them myself." Complete 5-figure mindset. You know that person probably makes $50K a year, roughly.
And they're penny pinching. Right.
Absolutely, yeah. People that have a 6-figure mindset aren't managing their own properties. And it's very interesting to see that. So like, you got 5, 6, 6-figure, 7-figure, like if you're making 7 figures in a year, it's because you're doing things a certain way. And if you want to propel yourself forward in life, in business, in anything, you need to figure out, okay, what are those 7-figure mindset people doing? Right? Like, what are they doing different than me? I guarantee you they're not managing their own properties. So that's one way to push yourself forward and grow your net worth and grow like this everything that we're talking about here. So cool. Hey, let's roll into this podcast.
Let's actually do it.
Have we even started yet?
No, we still haven't even done headlines. There we go.
Headlines. We need like a cool dun 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 music.
I want to get like that 1950s like news music. Anyway, so Fidel Castro, he's dead, and that's an end of an era.
Isn't that guy like 8,000 years old?
Very old. I mean, I'm surprised the CIA never actually got the guy, but I don't know, like this thinking back to the embargo and Bay of Pigs and this how much Cuba and America and it's very interesting. Obama just opened up be able to trade with them again, and that's kind of funny because you're going to see all these really old cars because there was an embargo. Now everything's become more modern. And speaking about investing, now a lot of people are going down there to see what's going on now that these doors are open. But no, it's a very interesting. It's going to be in our lifetime. Now we're going to see completely new Cuba. And our children will. Be like, we'll be reading about these history books and stuff like, well, no, I have a vacation home in Cuba. I can't imagine it being part of the Red Scare and things like that. So it's just very interesting.
Did you see President Obama's response and Trump's response when the news came out that Castro died?
Mm-mm.
It was pretty interesting. So Obama was very political, obviously. And he goes, basically paraphrasing here, this is a passing of an era. We're going to miss the guy. He was a great guy, kind of like very political, didn't talk anything
because the world sees him very differently than the U.S. sees him.
Yeah, probably.
Because he was a liberator of a lot of people in South America.
Trump, on the other hand, being who he is, said the guy was a scumbag. Thank God that he's gone. He was a horrible dictator and like completely Donald Trump,
right?
Like the whole thing. Like what an interesting comparison. No filter at all, man. He just whatever popped into his head. He's like, I didn't like the guy. Yeah. Good thing he's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's interesting.
That is, man.
And in other news, this Amazon grocery store, which I find to be very interesting. I think it's actually ties back to what we talk about here in this podcast, because a lot of people talk about jobs. And this is something I talk about a lot with my friends, at least, where there is just an expectation. I'll be like, okay, bringing back jobs to this country, what does that really look like? Because when you do have certain technology, like with the Amazon grocery store, where, it's going to be just done on your phone. You walk into the store, you turn on you scan in with your app, you put things in your bag, you walk out, and that's it. Now, that's just the benefits of technology, and no one really wants that to go away. But at the same time, what are going to happen with all those jobs? And that's why you have to think times are changing, and you have to get plugged into different kind of systems. You have to figure out different ways to get different kinds of incomes, because those jobs slowly but surely will all be gone. What most entrepreneurs can be like, well, if I can just do this, this, and this to be more efficient, and my profits will be better, then that's going to happen. That's just going to be the evolution of society, if you will.
One thing, if you want to make $1 billion really quickly, what you need to do is figure out how to save people time. I really think that's what blew Uber up so quickly. Especially, I think it's different for people who live in places like New York, where taxi cabs are available. Like every time I've gone to New York, I can always get a cab relatively quickly and get to where I need to go. If you live in the Midwest, particularly Kansas City, and you try to get a cab, good luck, man. I've called them for a ride to the airport. This was several years ago, and said, "Hey, man, need a ride. When can you be here?" And like, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll be there in 20 minutes."
Right.
Okay, 20 minutes goes by, and I called him back. Like, he's on his way. Literally never showed up. I waited an hour. Finally, I called my father-in-law. He came and picked me up and took me to the airport. Like I have like 5 or 6 different stories of like that where they just let me down.
I never had that experience with Uber.
With Uber, it's amazing, man. It's on your phone,
right?
And you literally just you're boom. You can see where the car is at.
Yeah.
You can see when he drives past you on accident. Right. You can text him. You can call him. It's completely amazing.
And it's very cheap compared to like a taxi.
It is. Yeah, the thing is, I don't even know that the cheap factor is why it's so popular.
I think it's convenience.
It's complete convenience, man.
Well, if I'm sitting at, it's most of the time for me at least, it's like, bars are closing at blah, blah, blah time. It's just like, now I want to go home and boom, I'm already in the car. It's fine. You know?
I know, dude, we use Uber in town all the time. We'll use it to run down, run back. It makes so much sense. But we use it. We don't even get rental cars when we travel anymore. We just use Uber.
That makes a lot of sense. I've always find rental cars to be such a hassle getting that whole thing set up and blah, 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 getting it back. And so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, should we move on to our topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so selling. I thought this would be something that's really interesting to talk about because I find it is a mental state. People get in and be like, I really don't want to, it feels impolite to try to sell somebody something, you know what I mean? And how hard can I push them? And, oh, I'm sorry, oh, you're right, and these sort of things like that. Like I think
makes me a little uncomfortable to push and ask those questions.
I think that's one of the things people have to learn to be successful, especially in this industry, is being able to be comfortable, that push and prod and ask uncomfortable questions and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So yeah. So
okay. So first of all, I don't care who you are, how old you are, what industry you're in, if you're in preschool, high school, college, we are all salesmen, and that's one thing that people do not realize. Yeah, you are constantly selling yourself. Like when you came to interview with me.
Right.
Dude, you had your "I'm a salesman" face on, and what did you do? You hit all your good qualities like in a bulletin point, right?
What can
Of course, you didn't mention anything about your beard.
No,
he's like, it
sells itself.
You should hire me because of this, guys.
Right.
We'd be like, okay, man, you're on board. Yeah. So really, I would say people's fear of being called a salesman is because it has kind of this bad connotation to it. Let's face it, especially in the real estate industry, there's something about this industry that really attracts a lot of scumbags.
Sure.
There's a lot of people on there that are not honest, and that'll totally rip you off the first chance that they get. I can give you a really good example of how much integrity our company has. Is just being upfront and honest with people. I sold a property to a guy, I believe it was last week, and I was actually training a guy to put budgets together for me. And we went to a property and everything was going good. We looked at the roof and he goes, "Marcus, what are your thoughts on this roof?" I looked at it from the ground. It appeared to have one layer on it. And I thought that we could do an overlay on it, which is way cheaper than, tearing all the old shingles off. Your labor costs are lower. So I estimated, it's probably about $3,200 to do a roof overlay. And there was something in the back of my head that said, you know what, let's get the roofer out there because he'll actually get up there on the roof, look under, make sure everything that is good, that we can actually do an overlay. And he called me 2 or 3 days later and said, "Hey, Marcus, that roof has got 4 layers on it, and the bottom layer is wood shank." All right, and if you know anything about roofs, if you have a wood shank roof, you have to tear it off and completely redeck the entire roof, because there's no decking underneath those. It basically sits on slats. So it ended up costing $7,500. So I was at 32 was my original, which would have been okay if we could do an overlay. And he was at $7,500. So we had to call our guy that we were selling it to. This was before the closing, and said, "Hey, we got the actual bid back. Here's what it cost. There's going to be some additional costs." And he was like, "You know what? That's actually fine. I appreciate you letting me know." If we didn't have the integrity that we had, we could have totally sold him that property and then had an add-on and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, by the way, oh, you've got this extra money that you've got to spend. But I don't I pound into my people's head. We're not that company.
Mm-hmm.
We do like everything we can to say, hey, now this is what it's going to be. We try to verify. Now, do we do everything perfect? No, we don't. I've sold people properties where they were supposed to go put a roof on and they never did because we were doing so many rehabs. Something got mixed up in the shuffle. And when they come doing inspections on it, they're like, hey, Marcus, you said this had a new roof on it. I'm like, oh, crap. So I go out there. Yep. Oh, no roof on that one. Call my guys up and get a new roof on it. So we're always up front, and when we make a mistake, which we will again, because we're human, we'll own up to it. We'll take care of it.
Without these little things going through.
Dude, it's amazing to me how we have processes for everything, but there's something can happen so easily that just throws a wrench in the whole thing, and two or three things will just fall through the cracks. Because we're all running around, we're all trying to get stuff done, and boom, a roof doesn't get done. So the thing is, we'll totally take responsibility for those mistakes and put a new roof on it. That one actually ended up costing me more than I thought too. It was like $3,000 or $4,000 more, which is fine because I'd rather you have an asset that's rehabbed properly, and we really work hard to make sure all your big ticket items are taken care of, and when you buy it from us. So roof is really important to us because that's going to cost you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 depending on the size of it, depending if you have to redeck it or not. Your hot water heater, furnace, those are big ticket items. Electrical upgrades. It's important to us that all those things are up to code, up to standard, to make it clean, safe, and functional for the long term.
Right, and it lasts longer, to keep going back to it and making all these little adjustments if it, is modern, more updated, I should say.
So circling back around to sales, a lot of it is people don't understand the sales process. There is an actual sales cycle, which we actually have that all defined. I wish I had it up here. I could show you guys real quick. Depending on if you're talking to buyers and sellers, it's completely different. With our sellers, there's an actual process. So there's the initial phone call when we're prospecting. And the sales cycle for us anyway, for sellers, can be anywhere from a week up to 12 months. It could be really short depending on how motivated they are. If they need to act now, we can totally do that, and we can pull the trigger quickly if we need to. Some people don't. Some people take a lot longer. We just closed a deal a couple days ago. Our initial phone call with the seller was 12 months ago. So they called in from one of our marketing pieces, and hey, I need to sell my property. I'm really motivated. And then when we make the offer, they're like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm going to list it with a real estate agent. Or I think I can get more. I'm just going to sell it on my own. But one thing we're good at in this company is follow up. So we call that person every month for 12 months, and they were never able to liquidate. I think they had some other extenuating circumstances that came up. And when we did call them on that 12th month, it was at the right time.
Right.
They had the right motivation, and we were able to get it locked down and get it closed and make a bunch of money on it. So yeah, it's if you are scared to say, hey, I'm a salesperson, it's because you either have a bad taste in your mouth, you don't want to be labeled as that, just because of somebody's unethical practices.
Exactly.
Just because you're a salesperson nowadays does not mean you're unethical. I have a sales company.
Right.
A marketing company, sales company, and we work really hard to say, hey, this is really what's going on. Because honestly, a lot of our clients don't live here. We have a handful of people that live here that buy from us, and that's fine and everything. But most of our people are East Coast, West Coast, out of country.
Right.
A lot of them have never even been here, and they're totally relying on on what we say as far as market, as far as property value, as far as what we actually did to the property.
Right.
They're relying on us to say, hey, this is actually what's going on there.
Right, because you guys have taken the time to build that reputation and have it, because you could look at the track record and be like, okay, these deals have been successful. These people have been, they've seen that return and that blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Yep.
So. A lot of people are scared of the sales process too because they just don't know what people are going to say to them. Fear. What if somebody asks me a question that I don't know? So we just hired a couple more people for call center here, and they're actually going through training videos right now, getting up to speed. They're going to be talking to sellers that call in, and we tell them up front, man, if you're brand new, people are going to ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, and that's completely fine. It's normal. The best thing that you can do in that situation is you go say, Mr. Seller, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that, but I tell you this, I will find out what it is and I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, how much do you want for your house?
Right.
How many bedrooms and baths? Hey, make sure I got your good contact information so we can follow up with you. So it's very easy there's an easy workaround around that fear. And a lot of that too just comes with experience. So I know you could come work in our call center, and I think we could have you comfortable enough to call any seller that's in my database and have a great conversation with them, have a great follow-up conversation. Hey, Mr. Seller, we talked to you 2 months ago. I'm just circling back around. Is the property still for sale? How's it going, man? I see in the notes here that you were going through a divorce. Are there any assets that you need to liquidate? There's a million ways, and that just comes with repetition, knowing what's going to happen, knowing what they're going to say. So honestly, when I get on the phone with somebody, dude, I know what they're going to say. You can tell by how the conversation's going that okay, this person's really motivated because of this, and this. On the same hand, you can tell if they're not motivated. Most people that call in from a marketing piece, especially from mailers, I've noticed this. We'll say, well, is your home for sale? How come you're selling your home? It sounds like a really nice one, and they'll say, well, I'm selling it because you sent me a marketing piece. Like, oh, okay. Well, that person is a brief conversation. If they are not motivated, my people are supposed to get off the phone with them in less than 3 minutes. So that's basically a point of contact, making sure that we've got good contact information, basic property information, and then quick follow-up. A lot of those people too, they don't want to do a cash deal or a terms deal. So what we've been doing is kicking them over to a realtor friend that we have, because they want retail for the property, right? So I'm not going to pay $100,000 for a $100,000 property.
Right.
I'm not a retail buyer. I want to buy properties at a deep discount for cash. Or I want to work out some type of terms deal, which we can typically pay a little bit more. And that all goes into deal structure. If deal structure is something that you need help with, you need to get in touch with us. We are experts at making offers and figuring out what the seller needs and then making our offer according to like what they need.
What are the biggest mistakes people, when it comes to talking to a seller, what are the errors that are making?
One of the worst things people do is don't follow up. So I made the mistake in my early investing career of thinking if a seller rejected me, or if I called them multiple times and they did not answer, that they were mad at me or they didn't want to talk to me.
Taking it personal.
Completely personal. And that's just not the case, man. We all, even if you are a motivated seller, you still have a very busy life.
Right.
We live a very fast-paced life, and people like to travel. People aren't always at home. A really good example is I called the seller one time, made the offer, and they rejected it. Hurt me deeply, right? Crying? No, I wasn't crying. And then I tried to follow up with them over the next several days and never got a hold of them. They wouldn't return my phone calls, and I'm like, man, what's up with this? Okay, well, the guy obviously didn't like me, and I'm not going to call him back. Well, guess what? It was 2 or 3 months later, one of my competitors had that property on his website. So he was better at follow-up at the time. He understood how to play the game better than I did at the time, and he was the one who got the deal and was able to sell it and make money. And that sticks in my head, man, because I quit the sales process.
Right.
I gave up on it. And after that happened, I'm determined in my head that that would never happen to me again.
Right. It wasn't that person. It was you. And
it was me. It was completely me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a possibility to do it, and you take that mentality and move. Yeah, I see.
If I would have persisted and if I would have followed up with that person, I don't know what their specific circumstances were, but dude, maybe they had some stuff out of town that they had to take care of. Maybe they were on vacation.
Right.
Who knows, man? There's a million different things that could have happened. I don't think it was anything personal that I did. Like, we had a pleasant conversation. I ran the numbers. I made the offer. They politely declined. And then I just quit following up. Mm-hmm. And that was something. Here's the thing in this business, like going through that type of a failure where you see, dude, I should have totally done this, and I could. That was my deal. Mm-hmm. That is like the best learning tool that you'll ever learn.
Absolutely.
Like, dude, you'll learn so much more from your mistakes and seeing other people being successful because of something that you did or didn't do. Than you will from, closing 10 deals a month and making a bunch of money.
That's the only way I've ever learned anything, really.
I know. I think that's a guy thing.
Mm-hmm. Like, got to run into that wall first.
Yeah, we do. We got to slam our head against that wall a few times. And, and then we're like, oh, hey, don't slam your head against the brick wall. Light bulb.
So, actually, I think we've actually covered all of our points, and we have made it almost to 40 minutes. We did a good job today.
No way.
Yeah.
Good deal, man. Hey, I appreciate you spending some time with me here.
I enjoy it, man.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching the show. Hey, guys, I want you to be sure and follow us on Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel. We do Instagram and Snapchat videos every day. If you want to see inner workings of what goes on, how James and I, Josh, how the call center works, we do daily videos. We love putting out that content because, first of all, I feel like it really should be inspiring to you to see possibility of what the inner workings of a successful real estate company looks like and what we have to go through on a daily basis.
Right.
So check us out on social media, check out our blog, and thanks for listening to the podcast, guys.
Absolutely. See you guys next time.
See ya.